So it was December of 1620. That's when this group of 102 pilgrims, they hopped on the Mayflower and they made this grueling 2-month voyage over to this new land. Now, look, let's just think about what they actually did for a brief moment. Can you imagine what it must have been like for them to arrive in the middle of winter? There was no warm homes waiting for them. There was no stockpiles of food. There was only the cold, icy embrace of a chilling winter. I mean, it's little surprise that just about half of that original group ended up dying. They died because of starvation, disease, and cold. Just imagine people burying their families in the icy ground and wondering if they were next. Boy. But thankfully, with spring came new hope for this toughened group. Because all of a sudden, seemingly out of the woods came this group from the native people of the Wampanoag people, and you've probably heard of this other character, Squanto. They were their salvation in a lot of ways. They taught them how to fish. They taught them how to plant corn. They taught them how to survive in this new land that they were not quite accustomed to. So as a result of their great help, that spring, they were able to plant, and so it was that fall, they had an amazing harvest. And so to celebrate that amazing harvest that they had, they called for a 3-day celebration. It's what we today celebrate as Thanksgiving. But here's the question that I want to ask you. Why? Why is it that they actually came? Why is it that these people would be willing literally to risk life and limb? Why is it that these people would be willing to leave everything that they knew and held dear behind, willing to leave jobs and homes and family members? Why is it that they actually came here? I want to share with you a quote from John Winthrop, one of the early leaders of this pilgrim group. He says, quote, "We sought a place of our own where we might live and worship God as we thought fit, and not be forced to conform to ceremonies we thought unlawful." Here's this other quote from William Bradford, a similar quote in sentiment, but his own thoughts. He speaks in the third person, quote, "They were constrained to seek a place of their own where they might live and worship God as they thought fit." In other words, they wanted to go to a place where they could be free to worship God. Do not miss the fact and reality that the Bible was their priority. The Bible, it is what gave them the courage to leave everything behind. The Bible is what fueled their dreams of a new life. It was the Bible that gave them the resolve to stick around when family members around them were dying. And so today, we're actually beginning a brand new sermon series called A Pilgrim's Guide to Study the Bible. Yes, during the season, of course, we celebrate Thanksgiving just a few days from now, and so we're going to do that. But we want to zoom into why we actually celebrate Thanksgiving. We want to examine the faith of these early pilgrims and pioneers that came to this new land. So we're going to hone in on how to study the Bible in this series. But today, in this introductory message, we're actually going to zoom out just a little bit, and I want to ask a little bit of a different question. We're going to ask the question today, why should we study the Bible? Because we want to discover why it is that it was so important in the life of these pioneering pilgrims that came to this strange new land. I want to share with you 5 principles on that subject, and here's the first one. Here's the first reason why we study the Bible. Number 1, because spiritual growth is not automatic. Now, the Apostle Paul noticed something interesting about the believers in Rome. Notice what he recorded in the book of Hebrews chapter 5, verse 12. He says, though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you the elementary truths of God's word all over again. You need milk and not solid food. In case you're not able to tell, he was not paying them a compliment. He's saying, look, the Apostle Paul was calling out Christians who should now, by this stage in the journey, have been spiritually mature. They should have been ones that are teaching other people. They should have been making disciples and reproducing themselves. But instead, he says that he discovered something very different. What does he call them? In kind of a nice, perhaps diplomatic way that only an apostle would say, he's essentially calling them spiritual babies. He's like, look, you were at the stage where I really wanted to give you some real meat, but man, I'm needing to give you baby food. I'm needing to rehearse the fundamentals of the faith all over again with you. I'm needing to feed you with milk and not solid food. Why? Why is it that he discovered what he discovered? Well, it's because spiritual growth simply is not automatic. In fact, the opposite is true. There is a natural gravitational pull away from God and actually towards sin. I want you to notice again how the Apostle Paul describes it in Romans chapter 7. Notice what he says. He says, "For I know that good itself does not dwell in me." That is, in my sinful nature. "For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out." In other words, he's confessing that there's this natural, gravitational, seemingly pull towards sin. In case you're wondering, let me dispel a rumor in case you think this is true. There is no such stage in the spiritual experience called neutral. Did you catch that?